Have you ever felt fear whispering in your ear, pretending to protect you while quietly stealing your courage? It tells you to wait, to think twice, to play safe, and before you know it, life has passed you by. The Stoics believed fear is not the enemy, it's the test. So today, let's learn how to look fear in the eye and act anyway. As we step into the first chapter, picture this. Your heart races before a decision that could change your life. The air feels heavier, your chest tightens, and a quiet voice inside begins its familiar speech. What if it goes wrong? What if you fail? That voice wears many masks. Sometimes it sounds like reason, sometimes like care. But in truth, it's fear, disguised as wisdom, whispering to keep you small. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." And that is where most people lose. Not in the battlefield of reality, but in the quiet wars of the mind, where fear convinces them to retreat before the fight even starts. Fear, by nature, is persuasive. It speaks the language of protection. It tells you to wait, to prepare more, to think again. It presents itself as logic, but beneath it lies paralysis. The Stoics understood that fear is not an external force, it's a judgment, an interpretation. It's not the storm outside that terrifies us, but the meaning we attach to it. Epictetus reminded his students, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." When we begin to see fear not as an enemy, but as a message, everything changes. Fear is information. It shows you where your attachments lie, where your ego still needs validation, where your heart still clings to control, where your peace depends on an outcome. It's the body's way of saying, here lies something you've not yet mastered. Imagine standing before a vast sea at dawn. The waves are calm yet infinite, and part of you hesitates to step in. That hesitation is not weakness, it's awareness. The Stoic would not curse that feeling. He would study it. He would ask, what exactly am I afraid of? The depth, the cold, the unknown. Because once named, fear loses its shadow. It becomes something you can walk toward. The moment you describe it, you separate from it. You become the observer instead of the prisoner. Seneca taught that he who fears death will never do anything worth a man who is alive. In the same way, he who fears fear itself will never taste freedom. There's a story of a Roman general who stood before his army the night before battle. The soldiers could see his hands trembling as he prepared to speak. One of them whispered, "Look, even he is afraid." The general overheard and replied, "Yes, I am afraid, but that's why I will lead you first." The next morning, he rode to the front lines, trembling still, but he moved forward. His men followed, not because he was fearless, but because he acted despite fear. That is what the Stoics called Andrea, courage in action, not in feeling. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the mastery of fear. When fear arises, don't rush to silence it. Listen. Ask it what it's protecting. Ask it what truth it's trying to hide. Every fear is a doorway, not a wall. If you walk through it, you grow. If you avoid it, it grows. The mind loves comfort, but comfort breeds decay. The Stoic path was never about avoiding pain. It was about facing it with reason, to look fear in the eye and say, "You can stay, but you won't decide for me." I've learned that every decision that truly matters will make you afraid, because it threatens the version of you that no longer fits the life you're meant to live, and that version will resist. It will use fear to keep its place. But if you dare to step forward, you'll find that fear was only the fog before clarity. Action dissolves it. Step by step, your breath steadies and your mind sharpens. You begin to realize that what once terrified you is now your training ground. So when fear speaks next time, don't run, don't argue, simply observe and walk. The Stoics taught that calmness is the fruit of disciplined perception. You see things as they are, not as your fear paints them to be. That's how you reclaim power, from perception, not illusion. As you learn to see fear as a teacher, you stop being its victim. You stop asking, "What if I fail?" and start asking, "What if I never try?" Every moment of hesitation is a test. Pass it, and your strength multiplies. Fail it, and fear will sit quietly beside you, waiting for the next chance to whisper. The question is not whether you feel fear, it's whether you let it make your decisions. Remember this: fear warns you of danger, but it also points to your destiny. The Stoic chooses to listen to both, but obeys neither. He simply acts with wisdom, steady as a mountain, calm as still water. And as we move forward, we'll uncover how that calm becomes unbreakable, even when the world trembles. Moving into the second chapter, imagine standing at the edge of a long road at dusk. The horizon is dim, and your mind begins to play tricks. Every sound feels like a threat, every shadow like a warning. That's what fear does. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers in the smallest corners of thought. It tells you to turn back, to wait for certainty that never comes. But here's the truth the Stoics knew well: clarity doesn't come before action, it comes after. Seneca once said, "We learn to sail in a storm, not in calm waters." You don't conquer fear by thinking your way out of it. You conquer it by walking through it, one deliberate step at a time. Fear grows in silence and speculation. It feeds on delay. The more you wait to feel ready, the larger it becomes. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." What he meant was simple. Fear lives in your estimation of what could go wrong, not in the thing itself. It's a reflection of imagination, not reality. The Stoic way is to bring that imagination into the light. Name it, see it clearly. Because once you can name what you fear, you strip it of its mystery. And the unknown is what frightens us most. I remember a craftsman I once met in Athens. His hands were scarred from years of carving marble. He told me something I never forgot. The stone fights back before it yields. He smiled as he said it. But that's how you know you're shaping something real. Fear is that resistance. It's the stone pushing back. The untrained mind calls it danger. The wise man calls it proof of progress. Every time you move toward what frightens you, you chip away at the marble of illusion and uncover the strength that was always there. The Stoics didn't teach us to escape fear. They taught us to work with it until it becomes a tool. Now imagine this. You're about to speak a truth you've held inside for years. Your throat tightens, your pulse races, your mind searches for safety. That tremor, that hesitation, it's your threshold. Cross it. Epictetus reminded his students that no man is free who is not master of himself. Freedom isn't found in comfort. It's found in the moment you choose action over anxiety. You act not because fear disappears, but because you refuse to let it dictate the direction of your life. True courage is quiet. It's the hand that moves while the heart still shakes. There was a soldier once who told me about the night before battle. He said he prayed not for fear to vanish, but for the strength to step forward with it, still in his chest. He said when the horn sounded and he took that first step, his mind cleared, and what he once called fear became focus. That's the transformation Stoicism offers, not erasing emotion, but refining it. When you stop running from fear, it becomes your ally. It sharpens your perception, strengthens your presence, and prepares you to endure. You don't need to be fearless to be strong. You need to be willing to face uncertainty, willing to walk into the fog without demanding to see the path ahead. The Stoics trained their minds for this. They practiced discomfort, slept on the floor, walked in cold air, not to suffer, but to remember that fear's power ends where acceptance begins. Once you stop resisting what you feel, fear loses its grip. What you accept, you transform. What you run from controls you. So the next time your mind begins its familiar chorus of what-ifs, pause. Don't silence it. Observe it. Then move anyway. Every act in defiance of fear is a declaration of mastery. The more you act, the quieter fear becomes, not because it's gone, but because it's been outgrown. And as we continue forward, we'll see how this simple shift, from running to walking, from avoiding to observing, builds a kind of strength that no chaos can touch. Advancing to the third chapter, picture yourself standing before a closed door. Behind it lies the very thing you've avoided for years: a conversation, a choice, a truth. You feel your pulse rising, not because you're weak, but because your mind is racing ahead, painting disasters that haven't yet happened. Fear is the artist of illusion. It sketches futures that rarely come true, yet they feel real enough to chain us. The Stoics had a method to silence that artist, to break the spell of imagination. They called it premeditation malform, the premeditation of evils. They believed that when you look straight at what you fear, you see its true size, and almost always it's smaller than it appeared in the dark. Now imagine this. You wake up one morning, and the thought of losing what you have crosses your mind, your job, your comfort, your reputation. It unsettles you. But instead of running from the thought, the Stoic welcomes it. Not with despair, but with clarity. Seneca wrote, "He robs present ills of their power, who has perceived their coming beforehand." When you prepare for loss, you don't invite tragedy, you weaken its control over you. You begin to see that what you fear isn't the event itself, but your attachment to it. Fear feeds on attachment. Once you understand that, you start loosening your grip on what you cannot hold forever. I once met an old sailor who told me, "The sea is never cruel. It only punishes those who forget what it is." He had sailed through storms that swallowed ships twice the size of his, yet he spoke of the ocean with respect, not hatred. Every morning before setting sail, he imagined the worst: a broken mast, a raging wave, a night without stars. Not to curse his fate, but to steady his mind. "If it happens," he said, "I've already met it in my thoughts." That is the essence of Stoic preparation. You meet fear before it meets you. You strip it of surprise, and in doing so, you strip it of its power. Most people try to escape fear by pretending it doesn't exist. They avoid hard conversations, delay their dreams, or numb themselves with distractions. But avoidance is just a quiet surrender. The Stoic takes the opposite route. He walks toward the discomfort with his eyes open. Because only what is faced can be transformed. When Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning that he might meet the ungrateful, the jealous, or the deceitful, it wasn't pessimism, it was discipline. He was choosing to be ready rather than shocked, to accept life as it is, not as he wished it to be. There's a quiet kind of power that comes from this practice. Once you've pictured the worst and accepted it, fear has nowhere left to hide. You've already walked through the storm in your mind, so when reality comes, you're calm, not because you're fearless, but because you've already made peace with uncertainty. You stop asking life to guarantee outcomes. You stop bargaining for control. Instead, you focus on your response, your virtue, your steadiness, and that's the only ground that never shifts. I remember a friend who lost everything he had built, a business, a home, almost his sense of self. When I saw him months later, he was calm, even composed. He said, "I thought I'd break when it all fell apart, but I realized the breaking had already happened years ago, every time I lived afraid of losing it." That sentence has never left me. What destroys us is rarely the loss itself. It's the fear of losing what was never truly ours to keep. So when fear speaks, don't hush it. Invite it in. Lay out its worst predictions, one by one. Then ask, if this happens, will I still be myself? The answer will almost always be yes. Because no external loss can touch the part of you that decides how to think, how to act, and how to stand. That's what the Stoics called true freedom, the mind unshaken by fate. And once you see that truth clearly, fear begins to fade, not into silence, but into respect. From here, we step into the deeper battle, the choice to act before certainty and to move while the heart still trembles. Entering the fourth chapter, imagine this moment, a single breath before you act. Your hands tremble, your mind is loud, and the body hesitates as if the ground itself is uncertain. You've already analyzed every outcome, waited for every sign, and still fear whispers, "Not yet." But here lies the paradox. The longer you wait to feel ready, the more distant readiness becomes. The Stoics never waited for courage. They moved, and courage followed. Action was their medicine, their prayer, their proof of control. As Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." The doing shapes the being, not the other way around. I remember watching a young blacksmith years ago. He was nervous as he forged his first blade. The iron was hot, the hammer heavy, his grip unsure. Every strike looked hesitant. His mentor stood by quietly until he paused mid-swing and muttered, "I don't want to ruin it." The old man smiled and said, "You already have, by not striking." That moment has stayed with me for years, because that's what fear does. It convinces you that waiting is safer than trying, that delay is wisdom, when in truth it's decay. The Stoic would tell you, hesitation is the rust of the soul. Each time you resist taking action, you strengthen the chain that binds you to inaction. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." It sounds simple until you try to live it. Most people spend their lives gathering advice, chasing clarity, or waiting for the right mood to strike. But clarity doesn't come before movement. It is born from movement. You learn by walking, not by staring at the road. You find strength by entering the fire, not by studying its glow. The Stoics believed that every decision that frightens you is an invitation to grow beyond the limits you've drawn for yourself. When fear says stop, the wise man listens, but still steps forward. Think of the soldier again, standing in the cold morning mist, sword in hand. He knows fear as an old companion. The trick, he once said, is not to silence it, but to walk faster than it can follow. That is Stoic courage, not recklessness, not denial, but steady action in the presence of trembling. You move not because you no longer fear, but because you no longer obey fear. Every step is an act of rebellion against hesitation. Every action, however small, declares to the universe, "I am alive." I've learned this in my own quiet ways. The hardest battles are never fought in front of others. They happen alone, in the moments when no one will ever know whether you chose progress or paralysis. There were times I postponed writing, speaking, creating, waiting for confidence to appear. But confidence never visits those who stay still. It's built in motion. The first word, the first strike, the first step, that's where power begins. Once you move, fear begins to shrink, not because it has vanished, but because you've stopped feeding it with stillness. The Stoics called this acting according to nature. Nature does not hesitate. Rivers flow, fire burns, the sun rises, and so must you. There's beauty in imperfect action. The Stoic sees progress as a greater virtue than perfection. A flawed attempt, done with intention, holds more wisdom than endless contemplation. Seneca said, "While we waste our time hesitating, life is slipping away." He was right. Fear makes you think you're preserving your safety, but all you're really preserving is regret. Life is not waiting for you to be ready. It's unfolding right now, with or without your permission. So, when the voice inside you whispers, "Wait," remember that time never waits in return. Move. Even a single step cuts through the fog more than hours of thought. The Stoic doesn't pray for fear to fade. He acts until it becomes irrelevant. Let your hands tremble, let your voice shake, but act anyway. Because once you take that first step, you'll discover something no theory can teach. That courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the refusal to let it decide your life. And from here, we move toward the deeper mastery, the art of releasing outcomes and finding peace in the act itself. At this stage, picture the quiet hours of the night when everything around you has fallen still. That's when the mind begins its oldest trick, showing you every possible way things could go wrong. The future becomes a stage for imagined disasters, each one worse than the last. You lie awake, not because of what's happening, but because of what might. This is where most people lose the battle long before it begins, not in action, but in anticipation. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." It sounds harsh until you understand its gift. The Stoics didn't meditate on death to be morbid. They did it to remember how precious and brief life truly is. When you hold death close, fear loses its grip. You stop trembling over small losses because you realize the ultimate one is already written. I once met a woman who survived a near-fatal accident. When she spoke about it, her voice was calm, almost peaceful. "Since that day," she said, "I've stopped living like I'll live forever." Before the accident, she hesitated over every choice, what people thought, what could go wrong, what might not work out. But after coming face to face with the edge of existence, something changed. She said, "When you've looked at the edge of existence, you stop guarding life like something fragile." That is the kind of clarity the Stoics sought. Not fearlessness, but perspective. When you confront the impermanence of everything, you begin to live with purpose instead of panic. Death, to them, was not an enemy. It was the greatest teacher, reminding us that everything we fear losing was never ours to keep. Seneca wrote, "He who fears death will never do anything worth a man who is alive." His words strike like thunder because they strip away the illusions we hide behind. Every time you avoid risk, every time you stay silent when your heart wants to speak, every time you cling to comfort, you are bargaining with death, asking it to wait while you waste your life. The Stoic chooses differently. He looks at death not as a curse, but as a compass. It points him toward what truly matters. It simplifies his choices. When you remember that time is finite, fear becomes irrelevant. Why waste another moment worrying about failure when the clock itself is slipping away? There's a story told about a philosopher who was asked, "How do you stay so calm in the face of loss?" He replied, "Because I rehearse it every day." He would visualize his friends, his possessions, even his own breath, and imagine losing them. Not to grieve in advance, but to learn gratitude in the present. The practice didn't make him cold, it made him kind. He valued every sunrise because he expected no guarantee of another. He lived not in fear of endings, but in awe of beginnings. When everything is seen through the lens of mortality, courage becomes the natural state of being. You stop asking for a long life and start asking for a full one. I've found that remembering mortality doesn't make life darker, it makes it sharper. It cuts through the noise of trivial fears. When you know every conversation might be your last, you speak with honesty. When you realize every day might be the final one, you live with urgency. And when you finally accept that death walks beside you, you begin to see that fear was never really about danger. It was about forgetting that you are temporary. The Stoic doesn't run from that truth. He bows to it. And in bowing, he rises stronger. Because once you accept that everything ends, you stop clinging. You act freely. You love deeply. You live completely. So the next time fear tightens your chest, remind yourself that you are not here forever, and that is exactly why you must act now. Memento mori, remember you will die, and in that remembrance you will finally begin to live. From here, we step into the heart of mastery, the freedom that comes when you release outcomes and let action itself be your peace. From here, imagine the stillness after the storm, the air heavy, the silence complete. You've faced your fears, acted despite them, and accepted that death shadows every breath. But now comes the hardest discipline of all, detachment, to act without clinging, to give your best and release what follows. Most people think courage ends when the battle does, but for the Stoic, it's only beginning. Because what truly breaks a person is not failure itself, but the obsession with controlling what was never theirs. Marcus Aurelius warned, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That single line is both a warning and a liberation. The world won't bend to your will, but your perception always can. Now picture a man standing by a river, holding a leaf in his hand. He releases it into the current, but his eyes follow it, unwilling to let it go. The leaf drifts, caught in the flow, and he reaches as if he could still change its direction. That's how most of us live. We act, but then we grasp for outcomes, desperate to control what the current decides. The Stoics taught that such grasping is the root of suffering. You can light the fire, but you can't command how far its warmth will reach. Once the action is done, it belongs to fate. Your task ends at the edge of effort. The rest is not yours. Seneca said, "A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not." It's not indifference, it's peace, born from focus. To live detached is not to stop caring. It's to care fully for what you can shape and surrender what you can't. Detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's knowing that you can love deeply without possession, work fiercely without entitlement, and fight bravely without demanding victory. True power lies in this freedom, to give everything, yet need nothing in return. I once knew a painter who destroyed his own work after every exhibition. When I asked him why, he said, "Because the art was never mine to keep. My job was to create, not to cling." At first I thought it madness, but over time I saw wisdom in his calm. While others obsessed over recognition or value, he stayed free. No success could inflate him. No loss could deflate him. He moved from one creation to the next, untouched by applause or criticism. That, I realized, was Stoic detachment in motion, the ability to pour your heart into the moment and then let the moment go. This discipline is the antidote to fear. When you no longer demand a specific result, fear loses its leverage. Because fear thrives on attachment, it whispers that if you fail, you'll lose everything. But what can you lose if you've already surrendered the outcome? The Stoic does not seek to win, he seeks to act rightly. He measures himself not by the fruit of his labor, but by the integrity of his effort. Success may come or not, it's indifferent. What matters is that he stood firm, unshaken, aligned with reason and virtue. Marcus once reminded himself, accept the things to which fate binds you and love the people with whom fate brings you together. Notice the wisdom there. Acceptance is not passive, it's active harmony. You walk with the current, not against it. You still steer your vessel, but you don't curse the wind. When you learn this, life becomes lighter. Decisions no longer paralyze you because you no longer measure worth by results. You act, you release, you rest. Letting go is not weakness, it's mastery. It's the quiet strength of one who no longer needs control to feel powerful. And in that space of surrender, something profound happens. Peace returns. You realize the world is not against you, it's simply beyond you. Your only task is to play your part well. Act with courage, speak with honesty, live with integrity, and leave the rest to the order of things. Because when you let go of outcomes, fear finally lets go of you. And as we move into the final chapter, we'll see how this calm detachment transforms not just how you act, but who you become. At this final stage, imagine walking through the ruins of your old fears. The shadows that once loomed over you now fade behind your steps. There's no noise, no applause, just the sound of calm breathing, the kind that comes when you've stopped running from yourself. This is where fear becomes fuel, not the enemy, not the weight that holds you down, but the fire that tempers you. The Stoics believed that adversity was not punishment, it was refinement. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." And that is the secret most people never discover. Fear, properly faced, becomes strength. Now imagine a blacksmith's forge once more, the heat, the hammer, the rhythm of transformation. The metal bends not because it is weak, but because it is being shaped for purpose. That's you. Every fear faced, every discomfort endured, is another strike of the hammer that sharpens your form. It's not cruelty, it's craftsmanship. The Stoics never sought comfort because comfort dulls the blade. Seneca said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." When you stop seeing struggle as something to escape, it becomes something to master. Pain reveals endurance. Fear reveals power. Both exist to teach you who you are beneath the noise. There was a soldier once who told me that every battle taught him less about his enemies and more about himself. Courage, he said, isn't loud. It's steady. That stayed with me. Because the Stoic path isn't about suppressing emotion, it's about directing it. Fear will visit, doubt will whisper, but discipline answers louder. You don't conquer fear through force, you outlast it through consistency. Every day you choose composure over panic, reason over impulse, progress over avoidance. You train your soul to remain unbreakable. Fear stops ruling you the moment you stop negotiating with it. The truth is, fear never disappears entirely. It just changes shape as you grow. But once you understand its language, you stop mistaking it for danger. It becomes a signal, an arrow pointing toward the next area of growth. The Stoics didn't pray for lighter burdens. They prayed for stronger backs, because strength built under pressure doesn't fade. When the pressure returns, it deepens. You begin to see that every challenge was never meant to break you, only to reveal what was already resilient within you. So, as you stand here, on the far side of fear, remember this. Calm is not found by avoiding storms, but by mastering the awe while they rage. You have trained your mind to stay still when others tremble, to see clearly when others collapse. And in that stillness lies true power, the kind that cannot be taken, only lived. You've learned to hear fear, to face it, to act anyway. Now, let it burn quietly behind you, lighting the road for those who still hesitate. Because once you use fear as fuel, nothing in the world can stop you from moving forward. There comes a time when fear no longer feels like an enemy, but a shadow that has lost its weight. You begin to see that every moment of hesitation, every tremor of doubt, was never meant to weaken you. It was meant to awaken you. Fear has been your silent teacher, showing you where your courage was waiting to be found. The Stoics understood this truth deeply. They taught that peace does not come from escaping fear, but from understanding it. Once you face what frightens you with calm awareness, fear becomes direction, not destruction. You've learned that clarity doesn't appear before action. It is born from it. You've seen that waiting to feel ready only keeps you trapped in the same place. The Stoic path calls for movement, not perfection. Each time you step forward while afraid, you train the mind to obey reason rather than emotion. That is how stillness is built. That is how power grows. The Stoics didn't seek to silence fear, but to act with discipline in its presence. They knew that courage is not loud, it's steady, patient, and quiet. If you're here now, it means you've already begun. You've faced what others avoid. You've looked inward and chosen not to let fear dictate your direction. And that choice alone separates those who dream from those who do. You are walking the path that Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus once walked, the path of mastery over self. A life ruled by reason, guided by virtue, and unmoved by chaos. Fear will still knock, but now it will find the door guarded by clarity. As you step into what comes next, remember this. Fear will always try to return, but its voice will grow softer each time you act. It can no longer paralyze you because you've learned to see through it. You've learned that what truly matters is not the noise of fear, but the calm behind it. That calm is your compass. That calm is you. If these words find you in a moment of uncertainty, take a breath and stay with this practice. Subscribe so you can keep strengthening the discipline that keeps your mind steady when life tests you again. And before you go, write this in the comments as your reminder today. I act anyway. Let that phrase live within you as proof that you no longer wait for courage. You create it. Keep walking this path with a calm heart. The next step will take you even deeper into your own strength.